So basically, my thread of thought has been this last year. I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's been a really attack. And so I was learning, and in between that and all my health with my eyes and everything, I did some research and discovered that a lot of people with eye problems don't realize they're either diabetic or pre-diabetic and or have kidney issues, but they don't ever connect the ones, because sometimes people get them in reverse order. They don't necessarily go a certain way. So I started fasting. And while I was fasting, one of the things I asked my Father was in heaven is, why is it that when we fast and pray, he hears us? Throughout scripture, it seems like if it's something important or we really want to get his attention, we fast. And from an aromatherapy mind, and all through the scriptures, the word wind, spirit, breath is all the same word. Aroma, it's the wind, it's the energy of something that's flowing. And we know that in the tabernacle, the ketoret, if it wasn't done by a certain family, because sometimes they would try to get someone else to do it for a least amount of bartering price of whatever, that they wouldn't get the ketoret incense to burn so that it goes straight up. And our prayers are compared throughout scripture with the incense, right? And so if we're praying, and I think there's some other scriptures, if you're not walking in Torah and you're not being obedient, etc., then the Father's not going to hear your prayers, or your prayers seem like they're meandering. They're not really going straight up. And so I was just getting this picture in my mind that when we fast, he seems to hear us. Not that he doesn't hear us other times, but there's this urgency. And I just got this picture that when we fast, our prayers are going straight up. And so I wanted to know, I kind of wanted to know why and how does that work. And so I was doing some research, and this is what I found. I found this quite fascinating, is that, when you're fasting, or let's back up. When you eat, what you eat either turns to fat or it turns to energy. It can't do both. And a lot of times for many of us, it turns to fat, and fat is also protective to us because it also stores the toxins. The body says, you don't belong here. I'm going to shove you over here to be insulated by the fat. And so when you do fast and or do detoxing, a lot of times people, feel awful. They want to vomit. They might get vertigo. They might throw up. They, get headaches, etc. But that's because the body's releasing those toxins faster than the body can release it through respiration, going to the restroom, etc. So that's kind of what's happening, and that's why you do certain herbs and or coffee enemas or whatever it is you choose, magnesium, to make sure things are going through the body so that the plumbing's working to get the toxins out. So, but here's the thing that I found quite fascinating. So when you do lose weight and you are fasting or on a diet, have you ever seen your fat? Where does it go? You don't see fat dumping out, right? Well, that's because when your body causes your fat cells to shrink when you're losing weight, and the metabolic activities generate heat, so it's generating energy, and which helps maintain your body temperature, and you get these waste products. And basically, there's this modulation of this energy from the fat. It doesn't just come out of the body as fat. It starts changing, and it turns into mostly water and carbon dioxide. So basically, we lose our fat through urine and sweat, but primarily, I think it was 70 to 80% of it is coming out of our lungs as respiration. And understanding those verses and all those connections to aroma and breath, that therefore makes us a living sacrifice. when we're fasting and praying, literally, physically. And so that aroma of fasting is going up. And also fasting is a time for the body to come under submission of the spirit and to listen to the spirit and the will of the mind instead of us being controlled by the lust of the flesh, in this case, food. And then I was doing some research on the Essenes, and I was also attending this fasting summit with these doctors. And I found that everything that these men in modern history were doing in research and saying about fasting was basically the same thing that the Essenes knew, like how many thousands of years ago. Now, the Essenes are known to, basically, in a sense, take a vow of poverty. And it's believed that they're the ones who were the scribes, took care of the Qumran caves and the treasures of Israel that Jeremiah had hidden, which they took the original treasures of Israel from the tabernacle through an 18-mile tunnel down over by the Dead Sea to the Qumran. And I believe that is what, when you read about the Copper Scroll, that's what that's talking about, is that hidden treasure that's still there today in the desert. I believe personally in the future, when they allow them to dig and take this out, the original Mishkan is there. And side note, I think it's going to be going to Bozrah. But anyway, I believe that people are going to be in that area, kind of like a refugee camp. So anyway, but the thing is this is is what the Essenes basically did, without going into detail, is they would go on and tell you that if you ever want to overcome Satan, you ever want to overcome illness, that you will fast. And you will fast at least 1 day a week. And you would do a 7-day fast every 3 months, basically every season. And they also say that they would say or describe it as you would eat from God's table or Yahweh's table, which, is basically saying if Yahweh grew it, created it, so God's table is in the fruit, the vegetables, nuts and seeds, etc. And so that's what they did. And they lived a very long time. They were very not into, being indulgent. And they go on and on about all the health benefits and how it overcomes the enemy and how all sickness is from overindulgence and basically a sin against the living stones tabernacle. So then we come to modern history and we're having all this science now. And if you don't know about a Dr. Fung, F-U-N-G, I would recommend that you might want to look him up. He is reversing diabetes in people and a lot of diseases, a lot of cancer patients, etc. Of course, we know now that the number one thing that you don't want to do when you have cancer is to use sugar because cancer feeds on that. But what they're finding is basically the same thing. If you fast for 3 days, autophagy begins. And autophagy basically means that your cells are cleaning up the junk. They're getting rid of all the stuff that blocks your system, because it's really not about today how we don't get defiled. Because, even if you had a perfect garden, unless you lived in an atrium and never left, there's no way you're not going to be defiled by what's in the air, what's in the chemtrails, what is around us, etc. It's really what I've been learning for the last 3 years is about how fast and how efficient your body is to detox, for all the channels to be moving. And a lot of us, our bodies do not detox fast enough. And so the toxins override so much, they go into disease and or make inflammation and other things worse. And for instance, if you have arthritis, 3 years ago, a lot of people don't know this, but I could barely walk up and down the stairs. Arthritis was really, really bad. Today, I don't suffer from any of that because of fasting and detoxing. And so they're finding with this fasting and the research is that after 3 days, autophagy really starts kicking up. Now, what I found fascinating was at 7 days, A 7-day fast, and some say it may begin before that. At a 7-day fast, our body is regenerating stem cells, making new stem cells. Now, with all the stem cell technology and some of it having to use, aborted fetal tissue, etc., it just amazes me that really it boils down to we just need to tell our bodies to come in underneath an order, and we need to strengthen our spirit. Because when we fast, we're making our mind and our bodies become echad and balanced, instead of the body and the lust of the flesh overcoming the spirit. And my thought was, in my case, one of the things I've been healed of so many things through nutrition, natural means. But the one thing that I have not been able to overcome is bone loss, because I don't absorb. Of course, we can get into all kinds of gut things. And that's another thing. When you fast, you're helping your gut heal. Within 3 days, your lining of your stomach, etc., intestinals will start to have new cells. So you're also in the process of healing your gut. And you could do not just water fast and lemon, or there's all kinds of things that you can do about fasting, but you could do a juice fast. You could do a broth fast. But that was my main thing, is like, how do I get healed enough so that I'm absorbing all the nutrition that I'm taking to grow back the bone? And so that was what really got my attention about the stem cells. 3 years ago, we had a car wreck. I had 2 herniated discs and a blown knee. I didn't have surgeries. I was in pain for 6 months, but I was fasting and cleansing and rebuilding with bone broth, and I'm fine. And so I think the fascinating thing to me is, number one, when we're fasting, we are literally a living sacrifice, and we're respirating because of what we've chosen to do, to put the spirit over the body. Now, what's more important with this is, some people do fast. Actually, millions of people now are fasting to reverse disease. People are getting healed off their insulin, etc. I mean, these are medical doctors. But sometimes you just need to fast because you've been emotionally, spiritually attacked. You've got a major issue in your life that you're praying or interceding for someone else, or, you just really can't handle all that's going on. But I have found that just by hitting the fasting and the water fasting, it brings clarity to the mind, clarity to the emotions. We have to understand that emotions is energy in motions. And so you're also detoxifying the brain, literally, mentally, etc. So you're healing the body, and you find yourself in this place where those things are much clearer. You can handle the stress better. It seems like some of it even dissipates. And so, basically after 3 days of fasting, you're not hungry anymore. And about 8 o'clock at night, for a lot of people, most people, there's this, I think it's a hormone called ghrelin that tells you you're hungry. And if you can tell your body that, okay, so I'm hungry. Usually when you're hungry, you're actually dehydrated and you need more water. But if you say, hey, I know this feeling is going to go away, so I'm going to endure with my will, my mind, and my spirit, and pray, and you're going to go away. And it does. And I know this is a challenge for a lot of people, but I find that this is the number one problem in, I'm talking to myself, but this is the number one problem with people. And what Father is showing me is, and I want to get really fast to this actually goes all the way up to revival, because when I started researching things about revival, because of these wooden earrings that were taken from a tree where the Great Awakening started, I was learning about this. And so what I found that was interesting about revivals, almost every revival starts with fasting. Almost every one. And the second Great Awakening, which started in this valley of this area called the Rogue Harbor, and it was actually called the Red River Revival. And it was an area in Kentucky where this second Great Awakening started. And basically what happened was there was this, I believe he was a Reverend McGregor, And I think he came from Pennsylvania, and he was with the city folk or the town folk, and he was a pastor there. And evidently he was too powerful of a preacher, I'll put it that way. And they didn't like him. They didn't like him so much that they threatened him and put blood on his desk. And so that caused him to leave the city folks, the hottie toddies, and go out to this place called Rogue Harbor, where all the pioneers and the trappers and, you know, all the sinners and the drunkards, etc., country people were. And he took over 3 churches, 3 congregations in this area. And for 2 years, he preached and he preached, and he couldn't get them to do anything except for one thing, and that was fasting. And I believe it was only 1 day a month. And after 2 years, the Great Awakening, with the power of the Holy Spirit, all the signs and wonders and miracles happened over that period of time. And a short little side story is there's a tree there, a maple tree that's several hundred years old, that got hit by lightning, and they had to remove the tree to protect the building. And I went to this Christian powwow with this Native American Indians, and they were selling earrings and some jewelry. And this wood here is taken from this. And I understand Ricky Skaggs, if you study Ricky Skaggs, the musician, he's from that area, got a long, long history in that area. And he took some of the wood to build, you know, fiddles, etc. And the Native American Indians made drums from them and jewelry from them. And the idea or the concept, and we're going to go woo-woo on you here, is the power and the energy and the vibrations and everything that happened during that Great Awakening happened right up underneath that tree. And can you imagine people coming to camp from all over the country? And they didn't have cars, they didn't have buses back then. They came there and they camped out, and 24 hours a day, they were filled with the Holy Spirit. People were being saved. People were being set free. And if you go on and study all the great revivals, this is basically how every one of them starts. Many of them started between here and Wales and England, etc., with children. We're talking small elementary children to, you know, a little bit older children, with fasting and prayer. One of my favorite heroes, Patrick Henry, he was underneath the Great Awakening preacher Samuel Davies. And so I believe that we need to get ourselves in line individually with our wills over our bodies. And I'm convinced this is going to solve about 90% of our problems that we have amongst our brethren with each other. And we cannot become one. We cannot be Akkad, and we cannot overlook each other's differences if we can't even overlook the difference between our spirit and our body and get that under control. And I believe that if we will fast with prayer, not just prayer, if we add fasting to our lives and to our congregations, I believe that we can get to the point where we can come back and we can begin to unify, be Akkad, with a common purpose in the spirit to have a revival.
Amen. And that's what we need. That's what we need as a people. Hey, Nitza, I had a couple of quick questions just because you gave a lot of good information. And when you're talking about fasting, specifically the fasting that regenerates, and I know I've read articles on it myself, what is the best type of fast for that? Is it a complete fast, a water fast, a juice fast?
A water fast. But that doesn't mean you can't do a lot with bone broth. You know, and a lot of vegetarians, this is my experience, a lot of vegetarians, and I have been a vegetarian, but I'm not now. I just tell them, one thing that a lot of people overlook is all the vitamins, the minerals, and the amino acids that's really needed are missing from a vegetarian diet to regenerate nerve and nerve, bone, cartilage, and tissue.
And muscle, even muscle.
Yeah, because you understand, one thing about being a vegetarian or not, what we don't understand is in ancient Israel or in other cultures that grow, and if you've ever been a person who raised your food from scratch, I mean, I've raised my own chickens, I've raised my own sheep, I've raised my own goats. You know, think about that, Abraham. They didn't have meat every day. They had it during the feast or during a celebration. And even the Native American cultures, all these other cultures, they had just a little bit of meat. And when they didn't let any of it go to waste. And then they took that bone and they simmered it and they simmered it and they simmered it. And and they would live off of that nutrition from those bones for months, especially during the wintertime. But the research is mostly, I believe you can get a lot with bone broth, but the seems to be the strongest is water fasting. And the thing is our bodies naturally do shut down when we're sick and don't want to eat, because when we don't eat, we're letting our body rest, and that energy is going towards healing whatever needs to be healed. And then you can do the same thing as far as healing and getting some of these benefits by intermittent fasting, which is basically where you can take a 4 to 6 window of each day and letting your body heal and having the energy to do what it needs to do the rest of the day. And the thing that I think I missed for a long time was, paleo diet to me was, oh, that's evolution, and they eat a lot of pork. But the thing is it's not really about that. And what we don't realize is when we're also fasting at the same time, and there's a lot of ways to do it, but when you fast, you're also killing off and not creating the environment for pathogens and parasites to live in, which causes parasites are behind diabetes. Parasites are behind cataracts. Parasites are behind arthritis. But we're not taught these things. We don't know and we don't understand because that's not what the mainstream is telling us. But the one that seems to be the best is water fasting, because you want to be hydrated. Now there is a thing, I haven't researched it a lot, but they say a dry fast, which could be Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the one time I try not to do water for 24 hours, and that is extremely difficult for me. But Yom Kippur is coming up, and that is the perfect time to do it. And if you don't feel like you can do that, at least do it with water. It's not so hard to have an afternoon eat a meal and sleep all day. No, sleep, and then wait till the next afternoon to have your your break in your fast. But I believe Father, he has those periods and times where the body just needs to do that. But yeah, there's so much more to it. But on one hand, it's very simple: water.
Right.
And if you're going to have problems, I love the water fast. I feel wonderful and best on water fast. But I have a little problem with the mineral issues, and so a lot of times I will do just bone broth fasting because I need all those vitamins and minerals for my bones, and so I won't get spasms all the time. So
right,
yeah. But we're going to go into detail, and a lot of that is the code actually. So
well, and that's going to be interesting. One more thing, and then Tova, also for you, water. Does it matter? Do you use the alkaline water, the bottled water? That's for you, or just water out of the tap, which is so full of other nasty stuff.
Oh, well, you want clean water.
Yeah, my last thing for you is Nitza, is you had talked about combining it with detox. What is I know we can't spend long, just a very short time. What is the best detox to do along with fasting? And how does it happen?
Well, you are detoxing just by fasting, right? But there are some amazing products that we actually have been using and experimenting with, and I got approved as a practitioner from Cellcore. But I want to tell you about this one product because I've been taking herbs and doing herbs for 40 years. Okay. I've seen some amazing things happen, but this is like the most immediate, amazing thing I have ever seen. This is called Para One, and we'll have them on the website soon. I've been selling them like crazy, but I ain't got them on the website. I ain't got no. But anyway, what's in this bottle is Mimosa pudica seed. It has to be the seed. And once it gets into the body, the thing about this is not like bentonite clay or charcoal, which is all good for binding to take toxins out of the body, right? This is also nutritional. And it's kind of like a silly putty once it gets wet in the body. It's also got a mucilage property maybe to it, and it just grabs a hold of whatever's going on. And even though you thought you were detoxing and you were doing colonics, or you're doing coffee enemas, or you were doing herbs, whatever you thought you were doing, this is a game changer.
Okay, could you hold that closer to your camera so people, what's it called again?
It's called Para One.
You might put that in the chat here in a second. Para1. How do you spell that?
PARA1. And you can get this at remnantremedy.com and go to Pure Shimon. And you're not going to find it there right now, so just email me or contact me. And we have full courses of we have full detoxes. Like we have a mold detox. We have a complete detox. All kinds of detoxes with these products. They're wonderful. And there's only a couple of companies that actually have mimosa seed. But I'm telling you, I can't tell you, like within a couple of days, the stomach, a lot of people can get the big intestines cleaned out, but they can't, they have small intestine issues. I'm telling you, you could just watch your body go down. And if you look in the toilet, you're going to go, oh my God. And then it becomes a war. Now, for a lot of people, that's like really gross and they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to go there. But you know what? When you see them, you're going, this is war. Okay. Right. And hopefully in the future, we're going to have a show here. Jessica Fisher, who did the Holiness Vibrations show with me, we're going to come on and we're going to do a coffee talk bottoms up, because we also have a coffee routine, a booster for those who do coffee enemas. And for those who don't know, coffee enemas are excellent for detoxing, making your body make its glutathione, helping the liver release. Coffee going in the inversion way has a whole different effect on the body, and also pain and inflammation. Anyway, it has all kinds of things that happen that trigger your body to do the things it's supposed to do, but can't because it's become so toxic. Anyway.
Right. Well, I love it. I love what you brought us today. And there wasn't a lot of time for commentary, but it was really, really good information. I want to say one thing. We as a congregation always have in the past have done 21-day fasts. And a lot of times we suggest, but it's not 21 days juice. We usually say if you can fast water for 3 days or so to clear yourself out, and then go on a Daniel or something if you can't do anything else. And just that way, you find your weight drop, you find so much more energy, your taste even changes, your desire for sugar becomes none. You don't want anything sweet and when it's all done, and you feel so good after it. And so fasting is a life changer, folks.
Well, one of the things that really helped me, and I think this might help a lot of people, if you like getting in your head and purposing to fast for spiritual reasons first, prayer first, I think is more motivating for people, and to realize that you literally, really, really, really are a living sacrifice, and everything that you're offering up by that controlling of the spirit over the body is going up in respiration to him. And we all know that if you listen to us long enough, that we all have our own aroma, literally, too. So your pheromone.
Sandy, can I ask one question?
Sure.
Because we've been discussing fasting. There is intermittent fasting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That is just as good. Let's just say that you can't right now fast.
Right. And I really don't. A lot of people really shouldn't go cold turkey into fasting. They should start, because it's really like building a muscle. And it's a mindset. So intermittent fast is a very good way to start. And basically that means that you're going to, and this is also used for sugar control and diabetes and lots of other things. You're just not going to get the stem cells and a lot of other mega things, but you do get some, is what they're finding. So basically what you do is, if you eat at noon today, you set a clock, and you're not going to eat till well, let's say 5 o'clock. Let's say you eat your 5 o'clock dinner. Don't eat again until noon tomorrow, and then only eat from noon to 6. I suggest you start out with an 8. Oh, wow. Thank you. You start out with a 8-hour window of eating, and then go to a 6-hour window of eating. So, I personally like to eat from noon to 5. That works usually for my schedule. But the more you can reduce that, so you're basically exercising. So just start out with, I'm going to eat only 8 hours during the day, no snacking after that 8-hour period, and then go to 6 hours and do that. And, set a day aside. Some people like to fast on Shabbat. Some people like to feast on Shabbat. Some people make that their one free day. But just doing that is helping the blood sugar. And that's really what a lot of it has to do with, is the blood sugar. so that your body is burning ketones instead of glucose, and you're helping balance your body. And historically, we didn't have access to a pantry and a fridge 24/7. We couldn't eat anything and everything we wanted. And the body is just overloaded and cannot process all of that enough. So I like to get down to a 4 window before I go to my 3-day water and lemon fast. Lemon's important because of electrolytes, things like that. So, and so what I did when I first started out this year is I went to intermittent. I started out with 8, I went to 6 hours, I went to 4 hours. Then I did 3-day broth. Now, in this case, I did homemade broth because it's heavier with the fat. And that's another thing you're going to learn. Oh, let me not miss this. Okay. So our body is built like a menorah, and I'm not going to go into all of that, but our body's like a menorah. Our brain has to operate from fat. So if you think about the menorah, the middle shamish, right? This one right here, which usually, is all fed up like a tree. Okay. Think of your mind as this shamish. It has to have oil. It has to be lubricated. It has to have that light to feed everything else or the body. Okay. So fat is really, really important. And fat causes your body to go into more ketone energy instead of burning glucose. So that's another way. If you're having problems and you are doing any kind of fast and you don't want to break it completely, or you want to help it, you can take coconut oil. You could take olive oil, but a lot of people take MCT oil, which I personally was always taught in aromatherapy that wasn't safe, but now Costco's selling it. It's safe on essential oils, but I'm not sure that it's the best thing to eat. I mean, just eat regular coconut oil, refined, but not MCT oil. Mine's personal. I don't think it's that safe, but so yeah, you can do fat. Fat's really important to do. So go from intermittent fasting, get that window narrowed down, make it easier for yourself, because a lot of it has to do with it. Most of it's right here in the brain. And then go to your 3-day broth fast. I happen to like to have the bone broth protein and the multi-collagen in the powder form by Ancient Nutrition or Dr. X. Because then when I'm traveling or I just need it right away, so I kind of do a back and forth between, I got fresh broth that if I don't use it right away, I freeze it and I use, and then I have that powder, and then I can take it wherever I want and I can use it however. So then go to your 1 day, go to a 18-hour water fast. Go to a 24-hour water fast. And then go to 36 hours and 48 hours because you're going to get yourself, most people, especially if they've never done a lot of detoxing or fasting or anything like that, they have to work their mindset into it, because we are so taught that if you don't eat, you're going to get sick and you're going to die. The biggest problem about when you get sick is just stay hydrated. If your loved ones don't feel like eating, watch animals. They do the same thing. They don't want to eat. But we have been taught, and we teach our bodies to override that we have to eat. And so, anyway, Dr. Fung, there's a lot of them. There's Dr. Pampas, Dr. J, but Dr. Fung, especially if you have obesity and kidney disease and diabetes, because they are reversing it. People are getting healed. And I think that's phenomenal. Did I lose you?
So your information is so great, and we were talking about, or we could listen to you all day talk and teach, and because this information, people are ignorant of it. Wouldn't you say that, Joe?
Oh yeah, definitely. This is why I wanted to have her bring up a little bit more about the intermittent, because some people like to dive into fasting and then they fail it and they think, oh, I can't do it, and they don't try again. So, like she said, try intermittent fasting to start off and then go from there. It's just like reading the scripture.
It is. Yeah, Jonathan is actually the one that got me to start intermittent fasting about a year ago. And not that I ate much anyway. I think I was doing it without knowing it, but he is really big, or it was, not now because he has to eat whenever he can possibly get food. But he was the one that got me started doing intermittent fasting. And because especially when you're working out, you just drop weight. You drop weight that way too. So.
Well, and you get more energy. I do intermittent fasting, and since I started it, which has been a while, I've noticed more energy within my body, and also the sleep issue. Getting more sleep as well because of intermittent fasting. And I also, yes, I'm going through menopause. I know TMI for some people, but it helps. Intermittent fasting does help with menopause as well. So.
Yeah, there's a whole science behind it. It's really quite amazing. And then just to go back and see, they knew that 2,000 years ago,
Yeah.
Well, everybody, thank you so much, Nitza. We're going to have you on again soon. Maybe to continue this, maybe to tell us something else. I've loved it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Rise up, my bride, don't you know? On your heels are the days of war. We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the New Jerusalem, and we will sing Kadosh, Kadosh.